My friends, when we look in the mirror, we see two people. One is the version of us who is lazy, doubtful, fearful, addicted to comfort, and quick to give excuses. The other is the version of us who is courageous, disciplined, determined, and capable of greatness. Life is not about fighting the world outside. Life is about fighting the world inside. And until we learn to kill that weaker version of ourselves, the stronger version will never shine. Today, let me share with you how to rise above your weak self and unleash the best version of you. My friends, the first step in any transformation is awareness. You cannot fight an enemy you do not see. And that enemy is not outside. It is within. It is subtle, it is quiet, but it is very powerful. The weak version of yourself doesn't always appear in obvious ways. It doesn't come with a warning sign saying, "I am your weakness, beware." No, it shows up cleverly disguised. It shows up as procrastination. That little voice that says, "Let's do it tomorrow." It shows up as self-doubt, whispering, "You're not capable, you're not ready, you're not good enough." It shows up as laziness, telling you, "Take it easy, why push yourself so hard?" It shows up as fear, convincing you that if you try, you might fail, and if you fail, you look foolish. This weak self is not a stranger, it is familiar, it is comfortable. It knows exactly how to make you feel safe, how to keep you in your comfort zone, how to convince you that average is good enough. And the tragedy is, many people live their whole lives listening to this weak voice, mistaking it for their true self. They never realize that there is another self within them, waiting to be awakened. A stronger self, a braver self, a more disciplined self. So the first and most important thing is recognition. The day you can point at that inner voice and say, "That's not me, that's my weak version trying to take control," is the day the battle begins. Because once you recognize the enemy, you stop being its slave. You see, awareness is like turning on the lights in a dark room. When the lights are off, shadows scare you. But when you switch them on, you realize the shadows were just illusions. Similarly, when you bring awareness to your weaknesses, they lose their power over you. Think about it. How many times have you said, "I'll start tomorrow, I'll try later, maybe next time"? That is not you. That is your weak version delaying your growth. How many times have you stayed quiet when you had something valuable to say, only because you feared judgment? That is not you. That is your weak version silencing your courage. How many times have you settled for less when deep down you knew you deserved more? Again, not you. That is your weak version convincing you that you can't rise higher. The moment you can separate your true self from your weak self, you reclaim your power. You realize, this is not who I am. This is just the weaker side of me trying to take charge. But I am not weak. I am strong. That awareness alone is the beginning of transformation. Because you can never change what you cannot see, but once you see it clearly, you can start dismantling it piece by piece, day by day. And so, my friends, recognize the enemy within. Don't hate it, don't fear it. Just recognize it. Because once you see it, you have the choice. You can choose not to follow it. You can choose to rise above it. You can choose to kill that weak version of yourself, not with anger, but with clarity, with awareness, and with strength. That is where real growth begins. My friends, once we learn to recognize the enemy within, the next step is to understand how to weaken its grip on us. And the secret lies in one simple word: discipline. You see, your weak self is a master of desire. It thrives on instant gratification. It wants what feels good right now, even if it costs you your future. It says, sleep a little longer, eat that junk food, skip that workout, watch one more episode, do it tomorrow. It is always pulling you toward comfort, toward pleasure, toward the easy path. But the strong self thrives not on desire, but on discipline. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now. It is saying, yes, I feel like resting, but I will get up and do what needs to be done. It is saying, yes, I feel like quitting, but I will keep going. It is saying, yes, I feel like indulging, but I will control myself. That is the language of the strong self. And the truth is, every time you choose discipline over desire, you are killing that weak version of yourself bit by bit. Think about the great people we admire, leaders, athletes, thinkers, saints. Do you think they didn't have desires? Of course, they did. They too felt lazy. They too felt afraid. They too wanted comfort. The difference was, they didn't bow down to those desires. They practiced discipline. They woke up when they didn't want to. They trained when it hurt. They studied when they were tired. They prayed when their mind wandered. They kept moving forward when everything in them wanted to stop. That is what separates greatness from mediocrity. The ability to choose discipline over desire. Desire is deceptive. It gives you pleasure in the moment, but pain in the long run. Discipline feels painful in the moment, but it gives you strength, success, and peace in the long run. The weak version of you doesn't care about tomorrow. It only wants today. But the strong version of you is willing to sacrifice today for a greater tomorrow. That is why discipline is not punishment. My friends, discipline is freedom. Freedom from regret. Freedom from weakness. Freedom from being controlled by impulses. I'll tell you something very important. If you don't discipline yourself, life will discipline you. If you don't control your eating habits, your health will pay the price. If you don't control your spending, your finances will control you. If you don't control your words, your relationships will suffer. If you don't control your time, your dreams will die. Life will discipline those who refuse to discipline themselves. That is why wise people embrace discipline voluntarily, while unwise people are forced into it painfully. So, my friends, whenever that weak voice rises inside you, whispering, just relax, just enjoy, just take it easy, remind yourself, that is not strength speaking, that is weakness. And in that moment, pause and ask yourself, do I want comfort now, or do I want growth tomorrow? Do I want temporary pleasure or lasting peace? And then choose discipline. Because each time you choose discipline over desire, you train your mind, you strengthen your spirit, and you weaken the hold of that small, lazy, fearful self inside you. Remember this, desire will make you a slave, but discipline will make you a master of your mind, a master of your actions, a master of your destiny. And the one who can master himself, no force in the world can stop him. My friends, if there is one habit that feeds the weak version of ourselves more than almost anything else, it is the habit of complaining. Think about it. Complaining is so easy, isn't it? We complain about the weather, about traffic, about our jobs, about our families, about our health, even about ourselves. And at first it feels harmless. We think, I'm just expressing how I feel. But what we don't realize is that every time we complain, we are secretly empowering the weak version of us. Why? Because complaining takes away responsibility. When we complain, we are saying, the problem is outside, I am helpless, I can do nothing. That is exactly what the weak self loves. Excuses, blame, and helplessness. Complaining convinces us that we have no power, that life is unfair, that people are against us, that circumstances are stopping us. But the truth is, complaining doesn't change a thing. It doesn't fix the problem. It doesn't move us forward. It doesn't build our strength. It only drains us. It keeps us small. The strong version of you, however, does something very different. Instead of complaining, it practices gratitude. Instead of saying, "Why me?" it says, "What can I learn?" Instead of saying, "I have nothing," it says, "Look at what I already have." Gratitude doesn't mean ignoring the difficulties of life. It means acknowledging that even in the middle of challenges, there are blessings. It means that even when life is tough, there is still something to be thankful for. And that shift in perspective, from complaining to gratitude, is what strengthens you from within. Let me give you an example. Imagine two people stuck in traffic. One is complaining, "This always happens to me. The city is horrible. People don't know how to drive. Why is life so unfair?" The other says, "Well, I have more time now. Maybe I can listen to something inspiring. Maybe I can reflect. Maybe I can just be calm." Same situation, but two very different responses. The first feeds weakness. The second feeds strength. Complaining also poisons our relationships. When we constantly complain to others, we spread negativity. People don't feel inspired around us. They feel drained. But when we practice gratitude, when we speak with positivity, we uplift those around us. People feel encouraged in our presence. They feel lighter. That is the power of shifting from complaints to gratitude. And here's something deeper. Complaining blinds us, but gratitude opens our eyes. When you complain, you only see what's missing. But when you are grateful, you begin to see what's possible. Complaining locks you into the problem. Gratitude unlocks solutions. Complaining kills motivation. Gratitude fuels action. So, my friends, the next time you feel like complaining, pause. Catch yourself. Recognize that it is the weak self trying to dominate you. And then ask, what can I be grateful for in this moment? Even in the darkest times, there is always at least one thing to be thankful for. Your breath, your life, your family, your opportunities, your lessons. Gratitude is not just a feeling, it is a discipline. It is a daily practice that builds strength within you. The weak self lives in complaints, the strong self lives in gratitude. The weak self blames, the strong self takes responsibility. The weak self says, "I can't." The strong self says, "I will." And every time you choose gratitude over complaint, you silence the weak voice and empower the strong one. That is how transformation begins. Not outside, but inside. My friends, life is not won in one big battle. It is won in the small battles that we face every single day. Many people think success is about one extraordinary moment, one giant leap, one dramatic breakthrough. But the truth is far more practical and far more humbling. Success is about consistency in small victories. And this is exactly where the weak version of us tries to win. It doesn't usually defeat us in the big moments. It defeats us in the small, daily decisions that seem insignificant. Think about waking up in the morning. Your alarm rings. One voice says, "Get up, start your day, rise with energy." Another voice whispers, "Just 5 more minutes, you deserve it." Which voice do you listen to? That decision may look small, but it's not. Because every time you choose to snooze instead of rise, you strengthen the weak version of yourself. And every time you choose to get up and start, you strengthen the strong version. Or take another example. You sit to work or study. The weak voice says, "Check your phone, scroll a little, it won't hurt." The strong voice says, "Focus, finish this task, keep your promise." Again a small battle, but winning it makes all the difference. Because the person who keeps winning small battles eventually builds an unshakable strength, while the person who keeps losing small battles eventually feels powerless. We underestimate the power of these tiny choices. But remember this: every time you make a choice, you are voting for the kind of person you want to become. Each decision is like a drop of water. One drop may not seem like much, but many drops make an ocean. One choice may look unimportant, but repeated over weeks, months, years, that is what builds character. That is what shapes destiny. The weak self hates responsibility in the little things. It says, "What's the point of making the bed? What's the point of finishing this small task? What's the point of resisting this one temptation?" But the strong self knows that if you can't be trusted with small things, you can't be trusted with big things. Greatness is not built in grand moments. It is built in the ordinary, in the routine, in the daily battles that no one sees. When you win these small battles, something powerful happens. You build momentum, confidence grows, self-respect grows. Imagine the feeling of keeping every small promise you make to yourself. Waking up when you said you would, finishing the work you said you'd do, staying calm when you said you wouldn't get angry, exercising when you said you would. That feeling is strength. That feeling is proof that the strong version of you is alive and growing. And here's the beautiful part: the more you win these small battles, the easier the big battles become. Discipline compounds, confidence compounds. One day, when life throws you a massive challenge, you won't collapse. You'll stand strong. Not because you suddenly became powerful, but because you have been training in small victories all along. So, my friends, don't wait for some grand opportunity to prove your strength. Prove it today in the little things. Choose to act when you feel like delaying. Choose to finish what you start. Choose to rise when you feel like resting. These small victories may look invisible to the world, but they are visible to your soul. And they are the foundation of greatness. The weak version of you wants you to lose silently every day. The strong version of you wants you to win silently every day. And the one you feed with your daily choices is the one that will define your life. My friends, no matter how strong your intentions are, no matter how determined you feel in a moment of inspiration, the people you surround yourself with will either lift you higher or pull you down. It is one of life's greatest truths. You do not rise alone, and you do not fall alone. The company you keep silently shapes your thoughts, your habits, your mindset, and ultimately your destiny. Think about it. When you spend time with people who complain all the time, you will start complaining too. When you spend time with people who waste hours gossiping or scrolling mindlessly, you will soon do the same. When you spend time with people who always find excuses, eventually you will also become a master of excuses. The weak version of you loves this environment because it feels safe there. It feels justified. It says, "See, everyone is the same. Everyone delays, everyone complains, everyone avoids responsibility." And suddenly, mediocrity starts to look normal. But when you surround yourself with people who inspire you, who challenge you, who live with discipline, who think big, who speak with positivity, something magical happens. The weak version of you begins to feel out of place, and the strong version begins to awaken. If your friends are committed to growth, you will feel inspired to grow too. If they live with integrity, you will feel ashamed to lie to yourself. If they take bold steps, you will gather courage to take your own. This is the silent power of association. There's an old saying, "Show me your friends, and I will show your future"? It may sound simple, but it is deeply profound. The people around you are like mirrors, constantly reflecting back to you what you could become. If you want to know where your life is heading, just look at who you spend your time with. Because environment is stronger than willpower. You may be strong for a while, but if you spend your days in the wrong environment, your willpower will eventually fade. And you may be weak for a while, but if you spend your days in the right environment, your weakness will eventually die. Think of a seed. Even the best seed cannot grow in dry, toxic soil. But even an average seed can grow into a mighty tree if planted in rich soil. In the same way, you may have dreams, talents, and potential. But if your environment is toxic, they will not grow. And even if you feel ordinary today, if you surround yourself with the right people, encouraging, disciplined, purposeful, you too will rise higher than you ever imagined. So ask yourself honestly, who are the people in my circle? Do they inspire me or do they drain me? Do they challenge me to be better or do they encourage me to stay the same? Do they feed the strong version of me or do they feed the weak version? And if you realize that your circle is not serving your growth, then, my friends, it's time to make a courageous choice. It doesn't mean you hate them or cut them off with anger. It simply means you value your destiny enough to create an environment that nurtures strength, not weakness. Seek mentors who stretch your thinking. Seek friends who encourage your dreams. Seek companions who remind you of your higher purpose when you forget. And most importantly, become that person for others, someone whose presence uplifts, whose words inspire, whose actions guide. Because when you are that kind of person, you naturally attract others like you. The weak self thrives in a weak circle. The strong self thrives in a strong circle. Surround yourself with strength, and you will find your weak self shrinking every day. Surround yourself with mediocrity, and even your strongest qualities will start to fade. Choose wisely, my friends, because your environment is not just where you live. It is what you will become. My friends, one of the greatest tests of life is how we respond to discomfort. The weak version of ourselves despises it. It runs away from it. It seeks warmth when there is cold. It seeks shade when there is sun. It seeks the easy chair when there is work to be done. But here lies a powerful truth. Everything that makes us grow lives on the other side of discomfort.